Am I the butthole for saying I co-parent with the nanny in front of my ex-husband and his family? My ex-husband and I have been separated for a year and will more than likely be starting the divorce process any day now. Ever since we split up, my ex has hired a nanny to help him with childcare of our 2 kids during his time. The nanny usually does pickups and drop-offs. Originally, I would try to communicate things about the kids directly to him, but I could barely get in touch with him. He always made some excuse about how work was busy, but I feel like he should at least respond to my emails about the kids quickly and that it was his responsibility to make sure the nanny had the relevant information too. Eventually, I got fed up with having to hound him every single time he needed information about the kids, and since the nanny does almost all of the childcare when they're with their dad, I decided to just communicate with her directly. I do still update my ex too, but now I only send him one email and it's up to him to make the effort to read/respond to it. This has worked really well for the kids and they seem to be doing a lot better during their time with their dad now since the nanny makes the necessary adjustments for them. It was my ex Mill's birthday and she asked me to bring the kids because my ex wasn't sure if he would be able to go. I still have a good relationship with my ex-in-laws, and I didn't want my kids to miss out on time with their family, so I agreed. My ex ended up showing up towards the end of the day. I haven't had to see my ex face to face in a very long time and he has always known how to push my buttons. I was trying to be civil to him for the kids' sake, but he kept baiting me when no one else was in earshot. My mother-in-law made a comment about how she was so proud of us for being able to co-parent so well after everything. My ex had whispered a sly comment to me not 2 minutes before my mother-in-law made her comment, so I was already quietly fuming. So, I responded with yes, I really enjoy co-parenting with the nanny. She's fantastic. My ex and his family weren't amused, and I received a lot of backlash from all of them. My ex accused me of calling him a deadbeat and said he didn't want me talking to his nanny anymore because I should be communicating directly with him. Am I the butthole? I'm sorry, but when he's not making an effort to communicate with you to coordinate around the kids and makes every excuse in the book to make himself unavailable, then you have every right to say what you said. He's offended because he didn't think you'd call him out in front of his family and probably painted a picture that he's doing a much better job than he is doing. Not the butthole. She's not the butthole, but she just made her life a whole lot harder. I'm not sure I could have bit my tongue either, but being not the butthole isn't enough when kids are involved. Yeah, much like dealing with crazy roommates' posts, this is you're right and you've had to put up with way too much bullcrap, but you're simply in a crafty position where you need to be extremely measured and strategic in how you advocate for yourself, regardless of fairness situation. The difference is the consequences of not having superhuman self-control will redound to her kids more than her. It's not really suited to this forum, since original poster has to consider a lot more than who is in the right. It's not fair that her ex is such a vindictive pissy deadbeat, but that's life. I think that's a big blind spot for this sub given the structure. Are you the butthole? No. Was this a productive way to handle this problem that ultimately will achieve the best possible outcome for you? Also no. I feel this way about 85% of the work-related posts where everyone says, go to HR. HR isn't there to help you, honestly avoid them at all costs. Honestly, avoid them at all costs. I disagree with this. There are times when it is in your best interest to have a paper trail of some situation, especially if there's an active conflict with another individual or management. Depending on the situation, at that point you may want to start looking for other employment in case you've just eliminated prospects for advancement, but if management was involved in the conflict, that may have already been the case anyways. This. HR is there to protect the company first. They will help, but as a supervisor, myself, many times HR just makes things worse than they need to be. That advice cracks me up. All too often, HR is the problem. Our HR is fantastic, but I realize how rare that is. Smaller company owned by a man, not a corporation, probably is what makes the difference. Owned by a man who isn't worried about being sued, lol. Oops, did I say that out loud? I have a friend who is an HR manager and I mentioned the HR is there for the company line and she said that was an unhelpful myth and that HR are there to ensure that both employees and the employer avoid legal trouble. It's in their interest to protect employees just as much as the employer. Edit. This could be a cultural thing as well, and maybe it's different in countries that have different legal systems, etc. We're not a very litigious society where I live. Your friend is biased by her position. HR is there for the benefit of the company. Always. If it turns out that what's best for the company is also what's best for you, then you're lucky. Otherwise, HR will always do what is best for the company that is employing them. Your friend works for a good company. Depending on the state, that may differ, but I've worked for a couple companies and HR has put the business before any employee first. Depending on the situation, at that point you should start looking for other employment. FTFY. Companies' memories are super long. Best outcome? They take your side this time, but you have a red flag in your file. Typical outcome: they either deny you to your face, gaslight the situation, B/C companies take managers' sides by default, and/or hound you until you leave, called managing out. Be smart when you see this path starting, update your resume. At best, you can be pleasantly surprised. At worst, you'll be prepared if things go sideways. This is exactly right. I worked in a place with hundreds of employees, and there wasn't a day that went by that some guy didn't make a remark to me that crossed boundaries. I went to HR for the most egregious, but ended up keeping most of it to myself because the HR manager remarked on a frequency and said, "When this happens, we usually get rid of the common denominator." My husband went to HR to complain about the retaliation from his supervisor for making a workers' comp claim. They fired him, person shrugging. If you have a legitimate grievance, going to HR is fine. By that, I mean, is someone illegally discriminating against you or sexually harassing you? Things like that, where the company can get in serious legal trouble. In fact, you almost have to bring this type of stuff to HR if you ever want to sue the company, because you have to bring it to their attention and give them a chance to fix the issue. But you are right about 85% of posts being petty stuff that doesn't need to be brought to HR. A manager should be fine. My friend was dealing with a hostile work environment, in the legal sense of the word. HR was there to protect the company, sure, but in her case, them protecting the company generally aligned with her needs and protected her against her management. Did she still have to fight HR? Yes, because HR was willing to take what the managers said at face value, claimed she was on Facebook for hours every day. My friend has no social media whatsoever. But the claims against management were so severe that her manager was stripped of all direct management responsibilities, kept the manager title and pay, though. They had done the same person to a woman a few years prior. That woman stayed silent and ended up being fired. People fail to understand, the role of HR was never to protect employees. Their number one priority was always to protect the company. It just so happens that sometimes the two align. If I need to get HR involved on my behalf, I make sure to pitch it in terms of, this is a situation going on you guys need to know about before it blows up with somebody else who won't be as understanding. There are times to go to HR, but people here suggest it for stuff that would get you laughed out of the adult professional world. Drives me nuts. This 1000%. Unless it is something truly criminal, I would never go to HR. Maybe not even then. They aren't going to fix it, and you will be treated like a leper for the rest of your career at this employer. Going to HR is the equivalent to going to the principal's office. Sure, it'll solve the problem you have right this second, but it will just make it worse for you in the long run. It's a last option kind of thing. As someone who works in HR, literally only because it was the first job offer I got during the pandemic that paid well and would allow me to support myself, and so while they were job hunting after getting laid off because of COVID too, I can attest that the amount of crap that people come to us about is phenomenal, because 99% of it is so petty and our involvement is not warranted whatsoever. I haven't even worked there that long and I've seen some profoundly stupid crap. I had a lady complain about discrimination and a toxic workplace after she admitted she called another woman fat, enthusiastically and right to her face, and then was upset when that woman didn't want to be friends with her and chat/sit together at lunch. Complaining about how the toxic work environment you created by being rude as hell is affecting you, and that's only the tip of the iceberg of stupid HR deals with. Generally, yeah, you believe management over the individual because the company usually has had a longer relationship with those in management and knows them better than the individual, but if management gets the same accusation more than once, we take it seriously. But that might just be how my company works. But yeah, HR sucks. People are idiots. The sky is blue, yada yada. There was a better way to respond that would have saved you a lot of grief, for sure. You were annoyed with your ex at the time, so you wanted to get back at him. You could have said something like, "Thanks, but the nanny has been a huge help. We definitely couldn't do it without her." You could then subtly lead the conversation to reveal that she does all the work with the kids, and your ex does almost nothing. There's also remaining silent. Not every comment needs a response. Yeah, I'm not sure why original poster failed to recognize she wasn't amongst allies. Just because she's friendly with her in-laws doesn't mean they'd be willing to take her side over the ex. Sometimes the crap just comes out your mouth. It's happened to me on a few comments that I'll say is because an original poster is all, I put them on full blast haha, and I get nasty responses or downvoted to heck. But it's rarely a productive way to handle a situation. People are looking for fights and validation for essentially being a jerk to a jerk. The parental issues have real consequences for the kids involved as well as the adults, but mostly the kids. Yeah man. I have done the same thing and received the same response. Sometimes being in the right isn't the only thing that matters. People on here never seem to want to hear that. It especially kills me when we are talking about spouses who are still married. Go ahead and go nuclear on your spouse when they mess up. Enjoy being eventually divorced, I guess? Yeah. Maybe in this instance you were right, but what do you care more about, petty point scoring, or your entire relationship and marriage? Maybe consider trying to work on that second one before you lose it for good? There is also a contingent on this sub who think if you can't be legally charged with a crime or taken to civil court, there is zero way you are in the wrong. It's a little aggravating. The dude that blocked neighbors' access to their garage because of petty comments about ownership of an alleyway comes to mind. This is totally true, and I always try to frame judgment around this question of was that productive? But I've seen people get shouted down, but blah, blah, and blah, so have always assumed that if people really wanted constructive advice, they'd go to another sub. I've been downvoted for trying to make that point. Oh well. Yes. Sometimes people don't want a reasonable solution, they just want to be mad. I've been downvoted for similar comments in the past. Op has the right to respond in this way and not tolerate BS etc., whilst completely missing the point that the response makes Op's own life 10x harder. Honestly, I go for OODA to yourself in situations like this one. Yeah, it's like, was this an butthole thing to say/do? Yeah, probably. But in the grand scheme of things, with the background info, was it a justified reaction? Also yes. Not the butthole. Personally, for my own sanity, I would have left when the ex got there. If it wasn't his time with the kids, I'd ask that he drop them to me after the party, or even offer to come back to pick them up when it was finished. My ex is a real piece of work, and I no longer communicate with him at all other than what is necessary for the kids. If he doesn't respond, that's on him and I don't let it occupy space in my head. There's also a challenge with meta definitions of what an butthole is. Someone who is justifiably at the end of their rope, or someone who is still going to be on everyone's bad side after this. There are a lot of situations where not being on everyone's good side isn't worth the cost, but it's also worth considering when you're deciding how to respond to conflict. Thank you for saying this. Unfortunately, parental issues come up so much on this sub that it's par for the course for judgment not to acknowledge. When there are kids, no internet judgment is really going to make the situation any better, justified actions or not. This is correct. You have to talk it out with parental issues. This. Op, not the butthole, but I have eaten and still eat so much crap because I don't want to make it worse for my kids. Definitely, not the butthole, but she's also really stupid to do it around his family. At the end of the day, his family is going to have his back, and they are only tolerating original poster because of the kids. Being civil on Op's part only benefits her time around them, and to badmouth the ex in front of his family just paints a target on Op's back. Oof, that one hit your target perfectly. Not the butthole, you didn't call him an awful dad, you made a joke about how often you talk to the nanny. You also complimented him on finding a great nanny. I personally think it's a clear everyone sucks here. The ex sucks, point blank. No arguments there. He should be a present father and he should already be the one handling the communication with Op, not the nanny. It's ridiculous that he is only now saying he is going to step up. Op kind of sucks for dragging the ex-eels into something that didn't involve them, but I'll mostly give that a pass since she said the ex was purposefully baiting her behind the scenes. Mostly though, I think original poster was TA to herself. Yes, it's a crappy co-parenting situation as far as the ex goes, but original poster admitted herself that it's actually been working great for the kids. Plus she also stated it's been less stress for her overall. This one comment has, at least temporarily, caused all of that to come crashing down. Best case scenario, the ex gets over it and everything blows over and either goes back to the way it was or, even better, the ex steps up like he should have from the beginning and they actually start communicating properly. Worst case scenario, the ex stays pissed/vindictive about what went down and fires the current nanny out of pettiness since she has obviously built a good relationship with original poster and then hires someone new that he can train to not work with original poster at all. Edit. I don't blame original poster at all. Knowing myself, I would have said the exact same thing. I'm just worried about her and I want everything to work out. Not the butthole, but I agree. The first thing I thought was, well, the nanny's fired. Original poster replies. A lot of people seem to think he would have fired the nanny/said something to her, but he didn't. The only thing that has really changed is that he responds much faster now and occasionally drops/picks up the kids himself. Sounds like it was a win of a comment then. Maybe it's what he needed to hear to realize that it was time to be a father. Sometimes shaming works. Also, maybe somebody told him that not responding to her communications about children won't look well to the courts when it comes time. Maybe he realized that, when they do actually divorce, the current state of affairs wouldn't help him in getting custody. Op has proof that he is incapable of co-parenting, including a witness that also demonstrates disinterest and a lack of engagement on the father's part. Op is probably getting full custody except every second weekend when she shows every attempt to communicate about the kids is ignored by the father, to the point only the nanny is aware what's happening with the kids. Hiring a nanny doesn't let you off the hook for being neglectful as a father. I agree, just shrug it off and tell them it was a bad joke or something. But definitely try to hold him accountable to actually start co-parenting now. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.